Hello everyone, back tuning into our latest ENSO update. So we're a bit delayed with the ENSO updates at the moment. We should have done the February ENSO update at the end of February, but kind of got a bit waylaid on that, to be honest. It was literally put on ice by the beast for years. I just ran out of time really to bring you that February update. So this is the first ENSO update that we've done since January, and only the second one this year. We're going to see what's happening in the Equatorial Pacific Ocean in terms of El Nino, La Nina, and all of that kind of thing. And I'll bring you up to date with all the latest. We'll also have a look at some forecasts to see what's being predicted as we head off into the rest of 2018 in terms of ENSO. So I'll bring you up to date with everything that's been going on with regards to the ENSO region in a moment. Just say that, that today's first video was JMA Friday. You can find that video on the homepage. It's the month-ahead look ahead, extending out throughout the next month. It takes us well into April, so have a look at that on the homepage. And later on this evening, we're going to have the rather delayed third Easter update. That will be with you around 6, 7 o'clock this evening. So let's get on with the latest ENSO update. We're going to begin by having a look at the cold and warm episodes by season chart from CPC, NCEP, and NOAA. So this is depicting, it's showing every cold and warm episode, that is El Nino and La Nina, going right way back to the year of 1950. So in 1950, we see that we actually had a La Nina going on through the first part of the year. So that's 1950 just there. And these blue negative numbers, they are telling us that there's a cold event taking place, or there was a cold event taking place through the first half of 1950. So consequently, it was a La Nina that was occurring through the early part of the year, and then that went back to ENSO neutral into the second half of 1950. Further down, we come to 1957, where we start off at ENSO neutral, and then we move into positive territory. So we have a warm event, an El Nino, depicted by these red positive numbers that we see here through most of 1957 and into 1958. That was a warm event, an El Nino year, 57, 58. So coming down to the year we're at, of course, 2018, we find ourselves just here with our first tri-monthly period of the year, which is December, January, February, coming out with an ENSO number quite negative, minus 0.9. Now you'll notice that is not coloured blue yet, and the reason for that is that there's quite strict and defined criteria to get either an El Nino or a La Nina designated. So let's look at 2017, last year. We find that through the early part of the year, we have these black numbers, which is ENSO neutral, and in fact throughout the whole year those black numbers continue, but you will notice that through the second half of the year, the latter part of the year, the numbers become more negative. So for this tri-monthly period, July, August, September, we have a negative number, only very, very slightly negative, minus 0.1. And the next tri-monthly period as well is only slightly negative at minus 0.4. But then we go a little bit more negative into September, October, November's tri-monthly period at minus 0.7. And that continues then for October, November, December, minus 0.9. And then for November, December, January, we go to minus 1.0. So getting more negative as we're going along. Now, what we have to do to get a cold event to La Nina designated, which will be indicated by the colours, by the numbers going blue coloured. What we have to do is go to minus 0.5 degrees or lower below average as our anomaly, which we have done over now 4 tri-monthly periods, this one, and also this just here. So done over 4 tri-monthly periods. So we've reached that sort of temperature anomaly that we need to get a La Nina designated, but we have to do it over one more tri-monthly period. It has to be over 5 tri-monthly periods. So essentially, to get this La Nina designated and to get those colours to go blue, this tri-monthly period, January, February, March, this box has to again have a number that is at or under minus 0.5 degrees. If we get that, then on next month's update, you will see those numbers going blue, and we will have an official La Nina event designated. We're just short of it by one more tri-monthly period. I think we'll do it, but let's wait and see. We do see that from the November, December, January tri-monthly period, where we was at minus 1.0, to the December, January, February tri-monthly period, where we're at minus 0.9. We have got a very, very slight reduction there. So if that reduction continues for the next tri-monthly period, this one just here, then it'll be a case of how much of a reduction is there. I suspect there will be a reduction, but I think it'll still be at or above that minus 0.5 degree threshold. So I think we're going to do this, but we will know for certain next month. And if we do it, then you will see these numbers just here. This one, this one, this one, this one, and presumably this one just here. That isn't there yet, but it will be next month. We will see those numbers going blue, and that will tell us we have had an official La Nina event designated. So all eyes on next month's ENSO update, essentially, for that. So this is how the sea surface temperature anomalies were looking in the Equatorial Pacific Ocean when we did January's ENSO update. Remember, we haven't had an ENSO update since January because the beast from the east meant that February's ENSO update was put on ice, literally. So this is what we're looking at. It's Peru over here to Indonesia over here, and the mass of the Equatorial Pacific Ocean in between those two land masses is the area of the ENSO region. So that large blue area that we see there, that is the signature of a cold event. It's the signature of La Nina. So back in January, clearly the La Nina was continuing virtually its peak, maybe just slipping back a little bit from December, but more or less still a strong signal for La Nina, albeit it was quite a weak event. We know that from the numbers we're just looking at in the boxes. It hasn't been a particularly strong La Nina event, but the signature for La Nina is very well defined, and so back in January we did see a strong signal for what was a fairly weak La Nina. This is how things are looking in terms of the latest. This is the latest sea surface temperature anomaly chart from NOAA as of the 22nd of March. So again, we've still got quite a large body of blue colours there through the Equatorial Pacific. Not quite as extensive as we had in January. You wouldn't expect it to be so because this time of the year, whether it's El Nino or La Nina, these events will always be kind of backing off, really. They always start to unravel and go back to ENSO neutral when you get into the Northern Hemisphere spring of any given year. So actually that's quite a strong signal still that we have there for the time of the year. So that's how things were looking in January. This is how things are looking now. Obviously it has weakened quite a lot over the past couple of months, but having said that, that is still a reasonably strong signal for La Nina, and I think we are probably still in La Nina condition right now. Subsurface wise, it's quite interesting. This is how things are looking underneath the surface of the Equatorial Pacific Ocean. So what I was just looking at there was the sea surface temperature anomalies of the Equatorial Pacific. This is how things are looking at depth through the Equatorial Pacific Ocean. So we've got kind of like think of the surface of the Equatorial Pacific being up here. So you can imagine there's Peru over there, and there's going to be Indonesia over there. So and that red line will be the surface of the Equatorial Pacific Ocean. Now this is the depths going to a very very deep depth, of course, of the Pacific Ocean. It's a huge depth that we go down to 300 meters. And you can see that at depth there is actually quite a lot of warm water now starting to gather. So on the surface, this is the ongoing signature of the decaying La Nina, this blue just here. So just underneath the surface, particularly through that central and western part, central and eastern part of the Equatorial Pacific Ocean, there's still quite a lot of cold water. But as we go further down to, let's say, between 100 and 200 meters, particularly through this central part of the Equatorial Pacific, we do see quite a lot now of warm waters gathering at depth. Could that be the first signs of El Nino beginning to develop through this year? I think it's too early to say that. We're going to have to wait and see whether these subsurface temperature anomalies continue to increase at depth, whether we continue to warm up at depth. But certainly at the moment, it does look as though warm waters are gathering underneath the surface at depth in the central part of the Equatorial Pacific Ocean. And we're just going to wait and see whether that strengthens and whether that develops into an El Nino later in the year. I think it's inconclusive at the moment, but I wouldn't be ruling it out because that is quite a large mass of warm water that we're seeing there now, or warmer than average subsurface temperature anomalies that we're seeing there now at depth. So we need to wait and see where that's going to go later on in the year. And of course, we'll have more on that in the next few ENSO updates over the next few months. Southern Oscillation Index next. So this is from the Bureau of Meteorology in Australia. The Southern Oscillation Index is not driving anything. It's just an index that's reflecting the state of the atmosphere. And this time we're looking at the state of the atmosphere between Darwin in northern Australia and Tahiti in the southern Pacific Ocean. So when the SOI is in its positive phase, it tells us that the atmosphere, the atmospheric pressures, if you like, between Darwin and Tahiti, they are going to be reflecting a La Nina. Conversely, when the SOI goes negative, then the atmosphere in the southern Pacific Ocean is going to be reflecting an El Nino state. This is the column that we're interested in. This column just here is depicting the dates. This column and this column are depicting the pressures between Darwin and Tahiti, but it's really this, the air pressures I should say, between Darwin and Tahiti, but it's really this column just here that we're interested in, because that's the daily preliminary SOI number based on those air pressures between Darwin and Tahiti, but having this column and this column. So, for example, we see on the 24th of February, the SOI was in a very positive state. It was at plus 23.34, which tells us that these pressures that we have here and just here were reflecting a La Nina type setup in the southern Pacific Ocean. That's back in February. Let's come up to more recent time. So let's scroll up and start from around the 15th of March. This just here, where the SOI is only very slightly positive at plus 1.15. Then on the 16th, the SOI is at plus 5.26. But on the 17th, very strong SOI then, because we're at plus 35.90. 18th, we go to plus 12.83. But then, interestingly, the 19th, 20th, and 21st are going a little bit negative with the SOI. We go down to minus 6.08, minus 8.38, and minus 7.28. So just a little bit of negativity starting to creep in there with the SOI through the second half of March. The latest number for the 22nd in terms of the SOI is plus 8.14. I think overall the atmosphere is still in a La Nina state, but it looks like it's starting to back off from that a little bit compared to where it was down here, where we was consistently positive with the SOI. So the atmosphere was consistently in a La Nina type setup through late February and into early March. It's not quite as conclusive as that now, and we are swinging a little bit between positivity and negativity, but overall still on the positive side. So what we see here with the sea surface temperature anomaly is actually about right, I think, in terms of what the atmosphere is doing. It isn't as strongly in a La Nina state as it was, say, a couple of months ago, but it is still more or less, the atmosphere is still more or less in a La Nina type setup, and so too is the Pacific Ocean as well in terms of the sea surface temperature anomalies. And again, we've got to wait another month or two before we start to definitively move into either sort of a continuation of La Nina or a switch to El Nino, or possibly we'll just stay at ENSO neutral through the rest of the year. We won't know that until we get into the summer. Let's have a look at some models finally, and this is what the CFS V2 is showing in terms of its Nino 3.4 forecast. Regions of the ENSO regions, by the way, we've got 1 and 2 over here, and then 3 is there, 3.4 is around there, and then 4 is over, probably a little bit out with the areas, but it's broken down into 4 distinct areas, and the main area that we're interested in is 3.4, which is kind of like the central part of the Equatorial Pacific Ocean, which is that area just there, more or less. So in that area, CFS V2 is predicted us to more or less stay where we are right now. So this is where we are right now in that central part of the Equatorial Pacific Ocean. Our anomalies are on the side and the dates are along the bottom. So where we are right now is just at or a little bit under La Nina threshold, which is this number just here, minus 0.5. We are just a little bit underneath that where we are right now in terms of that part of the Equatorial Pacific Ocean, and you'll see from the black dashed line that the CFS V2 model is predicted to stay more or less at that kind of level, certainly through to the summer. Into the second half of the year, we possibly see a little bit of upwards lift, but nothing definitive, and nothing to say really that we're either going to go into El Nino, which will take us up to there, or a real La Nina, which will take us down there. There's no sign of going in either direction for that from the CFS V2 at the moment. So it just wants to keep us hovering close to where we are right now. I suspect what's going on there is that the model just can't yet see, because we're at the spring predictability barrier where it's kind of blocked, if you like, from being able to see ahead what's going to happen. So at the moment the model can't get a true feel for where things are going to go after we come out of spring, going to summer. So it just wants to maintain us, if you like, at the level we're at right now. All I would say is that maybe some of the more later members, which are the blue coloured lines here, maybe some of them are shifting a little bit more onto the El Nino side. But again, it's not clear cut, it's not defined, and basically the model wants to keep us close to ENSO neutral on the cold side, certainly up to the summer. This is how the E70F is predicting things. So again, it's the same idea. We've got the temperature anomalies for the 3.4 region on the side. We've got the dates along the bottom. Where we're starting off at right now is with a weak cold event, a weak La Nina. You'll see there is a very strong upwards lift, though, from this model, in contrast to what we saw from the CFS V2, where there's no real upwards lift to be seen. The E70F model is definitely lifting these ensemble plumes into positive territory. So this is kind of like ENSO neutral, true ENSO neutral, just here. This is a weak El Nino event, and this will be a strong El Nino event, a strong warm event up here. That would be a weak La Nina down there, where we're starting off at. So the trend is obviously to lift things up to ENSO neutral on the warm side. But we do see evidence here that many of these ensemble plume members want to actually go into a weak El Nino event, and that is at odds with what the CFS is showing. So the CFS wants to keep us at ENSO neutral on the cold side through to summer. The E70F is definitely hinting that we might go into a weak El Nino by the time we get through to the summer. And then finally, we've got the Jamstec IOD, and again, it's the same idea. The blue line shows where we've been with ENSO, the red line where the Jamstec model is forecasted to go. We've got the temperature anomalies along the side, and the monthly periods are along the bottom. We're starting off here, so again, just about an ENSO neutral, but on the cold side, sort of on a border between ENSO neutral and La Nina. But Jamstec wants to lift us up to the positive side of ENSO neutral, but no more than that, and then maintain us at that level really as we go into the second half of the year. That's July, that's October, and that's January 2019, just there. So that's more or less in line with what the CFS V2 is showing. So we've got the two models that want to keep us around ENSO neutral for the rest of the year. A little bit of a lift up from the La Nina we're at, but more or less staying at ENSO neutral, certainly to the summer anyway. That's CFS V2 and Jamstec. But the ECM is definitely hinting at the chance, anyway, that we're going to go into a weak El Nino through the middle and second half of the year. And as I say, I think what's going on here is purely down to the spring predictability barrier. Try saying that when you've had a drink, which I certainly haven't. So what I can tell you is that we're going to have to wait another month or two to decide what's going to happen. But I do think that we're going to sort of leave the weak La Nina we're at and probably go back to ENSO neutral through the spring, which you'd expect us to do. Where we're at by the summer, I think it's inconclusive. We'll know in another 2 or 3 months how things are going to pan out through the second half of this year. But at the moment, it's just a little bit too uncertain to predict. But I think the ECM is quite interesting that that's going for a weak La Nina, especially when you combine it, a weak El Nino, I should say, especially when you combine it with those warm subsurface temperature anomalies that are starting to appear at depth, deep down in the Equatorial Pacific Ocean. Okay, so that's brought you up to date with everything ENSO wise. Don't forget to check out JMA Friday. That video is on the homepage. And, of course, we're going to find that later on we're going to have our third Easter 2018 update. That'll be with you around 6, 7 o'clock this evening. But that's all for now, and thanks for watching.